What if I were to tell you that you can handle more than 95% of any potential objections that you'll get as a recruitment consultant using just one simple 4-stage process? Would that be worth spending some time on? Fantastic, because I am, and you're still watching, so let's go. My name's Stephen Long. I've spent the last 20 years training over 50,000 recruitment consultants, founding, building and selling my own recruitment firm, and building my own personal recruitment desk from zero to £800,000 of revenue in just under a year. So if you're looking to find out how to become a unicorn, there'll probably be a channel somewhere on YouTube that's right for that. If you want to find out how to increase your revenue significantly as a recruitment consultant, you're in the right place. So let's talk about objections. There are very few things more guaranteed to get a conversation with recruitment consultants going off in the wrong direction and leading to drink than the idea of objections and objection handling. Because recruitment's particularly challenging if you think about it as a sales function, because you've got two products that can say no. You've got the candidate who can say no, you've got the client who can say no. So you're constantly making a double sale, and each side of that equation can raise an almost infinite number of objections. Now, the good thing is that most of those objections are predictable in the different stages of the process. So if they're predictable, you can prevent them, and that's going to be the topic of another video that I'm doing next week, which is all about how to prevent objections. But this video is about how do you handle objections when they've actually been raised, when they have been voiced, when a potential client or prospect says that you're too expensive, you're asking for 20% and their current recruiters are charging 15%, or the candidate who says, well, yeah, but I'm just too busy to get my CV updated. How often have you heard those kinds of objections, and the hundreds of others that happen as well? Now, the interesting thing is if you actually slice those down, there's probably only ultimately five kinds of objection. But whichever kind of objection you're getting, they're all capable of being handled. Some of them are a negotiation, which is fine, but most of them are actually at their core either somebody asking a question. In the case of the candidate who's going like, well, I can't be bothered, I haven't had the time to update my CV. That candidate is saying to you, why should I be bothered? I cleaned that up in my head before I said it. Why should I be bothered? The client, the prospect who says, well, you're asking for 20% and my current recruiters are charging 15%. The rest of that statement turns it into a question, which is, why on earth should I pay you the extra 5%? So the vast majority of objections are actually questions. They're asking you a question and they're telling you that they need some information, they need an answer that you've not given them yet. And the second kind of objection, this is broad headings, by the way. The second broad heading is they're just telling you they don't understand. They literally haven't got what you're telling them. And they're telling you that they just plain don't understand. So the beautiful thing about this is that as a result of just hundreds of hours, thousands of hours, I've probably done my 10,000 hours to develop expert status just on objection handling over the years, because I've been in the fortunate position that it's been my job to study behavioural psychology, to become an expert in NLP, to spend time with the absolute best recruiters in the world, work with the best recruitment companies in the world, and also work with the opposite end of the scale. And I've had the opportunity to really study and dive down and just put in the hours so that I can sit back and go, actually, you know what? There's a pattern It's a bit like one of those pictures where you look at it and there's nothing there, then you squint and pull your head back and suddenly you see the picture. Well, my years of experience have allowed me to take that step back, squint, and oh, right, got it. Now, the most important learning point for this technique I'm going to teach you was working with Dr. Richard Bandler, who is one of the founders of NLP, and Dr. John Grinder, who is his former business partner. And what I learned was something called the precision model. And that's at the heart of this technique that I'm going to teach you. So it's a very soundly established psychological tool that allows you to really dive into what somebody's thinking, whether they know they're thinking it or not, which is kind of intriguing. So let me give you the approach, the way to handle every objection in 4 stages. And it's called REAP. You're going to reap your potential customers and reap your customers and reap your candidates. And hopefully you'll reap the rewards. I'm old, expect dad jokes. So, REAP, R-E-A-P. Somebody voices an objection. This is for use after you've got the objection. It doesn't prevent it, it's the way to address it. So think of this as either a replacement for or an adjunct to something that comes before all of those objection handlings you may have been taught. The feel, felt, found, and that's exactly why, and all of that sort of classic objection handling that you may have done, the Ben Franklin close. Well, let's do all the positives and all the negatives and see where we're at, all the pros and all the cons and all that sort of stuff that you may have read about or been trained in. My basic thought, by the way, is if you need 365 ways to handle an objection, you're probably doing it wrong. But I digress. So, REAP. Somebody raises an objection. They say it. First stage is repeat it back. So if somebody says, you're asking for 20% and our current recruiters are only at 15, you repeat back what they just said. So, okay, well, you're saying they're currently at 15%. You repeat it back. Now, an important thing here. A lot of old school trainers used to teach people to paraphrase. So take what somebody said and reword it. Now, all you're doing there is telling somebody what they would have said if only they were as clever as you, which really isn't a good way to build a relationship. Yeah. So when I say repeat back, I mean literally, don't paraphrase, parrot-phrase what they say back to them. Don't worry, we're going somewhere with it. Second stage, the E, is for empathize. So in that example, you're asking for 20%, our current recruiters are at 15%. Okay, so your current recruiters are at 15% and we're looking for 20. Fair enough. I understand completely. Empathize. Just acknowledge their viewpoint. Don't try and contradict it. Because if I contradict what you just said, that'll be interpreted as an attack. If I attack you, you'll attack me back. So don't even passively aggressive, but anyway, just don't get into an argument with a customer. You've already lost. So repeat back what they said, empathize. Fair enough. Oh, got you. I'm with you. I understand what you're saying. Just empathize. Third stage, the A, is for ask. This is where you're going to ask questions. This is where the precision model comes in from NLP. And what you're going to learn to do is the art of asking vague questions to get detailed answers. See, what most people have been trying to do is to ask very detailed questions. So let me give you an example. Somebody may have been trained to say, Okay, so you say that we're asking for 20, they're asking for 15, and I understand that. In terms of that difference, what's important for you to know that that's a worthwhile difference to pay? What's important for you to know that difference is worthwhile? That's the kind of thing that people have been trained in. And the answer will be, I don't know. Well, nothing really. But if you ask a vague question, a seemingly vague question, it triggers people to talk, to give you more information. So, okay, 15%, blah, 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 15%, understand completely. Okay. You say that all your recruiters are charging you 15%. How do you mean all of them? Now, that sounds vague and it sounds stupid, but think about the responses. They can turn around and say, well, literally, every recruitment firm we ever use for every role that we ever place. Fine, that's situation A. They could turn around and say, well, okay, occasionally we'll use a different firm for the more senior roles, and we'll pay them a little bit differently for it. That's situation B. They might say, well, to be fair, we've been recruiting ourselves because we haven't used a recruitment company for the last couple of years. That's situation C. And I could probably do another 40 without breaking a sweat. Asking a very vague question gets you a very pointed answer, gets you an open answer. And you then progress it. You keep asking questions. You keep asking questions until you really understand what they're really saying, which is very rarely what they started with. Now, here's an interesting thing. If you ask people enough questions that get them talking and get them thinking, and the ultimate point, by the way, is where you ask a question and somebody goes, well, because when they do that, when they make vowel noises at you, then you've made them think. You can take a client or candidate to an opportunity, but you can't make them think until you do. And once you do, you've made headway, because now they're looking at things in a different way. So just keep asking questions. Okay, so you've not worked with anybody you've not worked with any outside firms the last couple of years. What was that about? Information. I say you say you work with people on more senior roles, and they charge a different fee. How do you mean? In what way? Could you give me an example? Those are my 3 favourite questions. How do you mean? In what way? Could you give me an example? People just flood you with information when you ask questions like that. And the 4th stage, when you've actually got to the underlying truth, when you really know what the situation is when you propose an action or you propose a solution. Now, personally, I tend to stick with a simple way of doing it. And what I will simply say is, okay, so we've done, what you're saying is this, this, and this. So I'll just summarize what they've said. And then I'll say, okay, well, because of that, what I suggest is that. What do you think? That's literally my objection handling technique for 90% of these situations I find myself in. So you've said that you're this, 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 and this. Okay. Well, because of that, what I suggest is, because of that, what I propose is, because of that, what about this? Because of that, why don't we the other? What do you think? How would that work? What do you reckon? Does that make sense? That, by the way, is a little thing called SAQ. And I use that for handling objections. I use it for closing. I use it for making presentations. I use it for these videos. See what I mean? Or the P for propose stage, you could use one of the classic objection handling techniques. You could go through the process of repeat back what they said, empathize, ask a bunch of questions to get more information, and then you could say, I understand exactly how you feel. A lot of our really best clients, a lot of our really best candidates felt like that originally, and then what they found was. So you can fit this in with your existing objection handling technique if you want to. That's entirely up to you. But the first 3 stages make the 4th work. If you just jump straight to the proposal, what does that say to the other person? The other person's opened up to you. They've asked you a direct question, or they've implied a question to you. And you've just ignored them and handled their objection. Well, what that's saying is that you're treating them like baked bean instead of human being. Treat people like human beings. Take their comments and their questions seriously. Examine them, talk about them. Let them know that they are being heard. Let them know that you are taking them seriously and you want to understand what they mean. Because then, if you want to understand what they mean and you are taking them seriously, the law of reciprocity means that they'll tend to want to know what you mean and take you seriously. If you give them your attention and your focus, guess what they'll tend to give you? But if you just ignore what they said and just try and ride roughshod over them, well, I'm a salesperson, I'm a recruitment consultant, I'm an executive search professional. You're only a client or candidate. You should do what I say because I'm the expert. Yeah, X as in has been, spurts as in leaks under pressure. It's much better to be quieter, more reflective, and understand what they're saying and let them know that you've understood what they're saying. Because then, when you make your proposal, which might be to, look, why don't you fully engage with this, get as enthusiastic about it as you can do and see where we go. If it's interesting, brilliant. If it's not, it's cost you half an hour. Why don't we? When you put your proposal in front of somebody, they're receptive to it because you've given them time, attention, and focus. That's it. Once you get the objection, reap them and reap the results. Cheesy, but my goodness, it's effective. I've built all my businesses and my career fundamentally around handling objections with that approach. It works, it's solid. Put it into practice and it will work for you. Now, please, if you've enjoyed this and if you've benefited from it, if it's been of service, put a like down there and put a comment in with any questions or feedback that you got, because that's always appreciated. If you put a question down there, I will reply directly as quickly as I can do through the comments. Alternatively, if you connect with me on social media, the best ones are Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you connect with me there, you can always send me a DM if your question is a bit more confidential or you don't want to put it out in public on YouTube. Hopefully this has been useful for you. If it has, hit the subscribe button so that you get notified of all the new stuff that's coming through for you every week. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.